The porcelain cup shattered the moment it slipped from Adesola Nyarko's trembling fingers. It hit the marble floor of the penthouse kitchen and exploded into white shards that skidded across the polished surface like ice. The sound was sharp, violent, echoing far louder than it should have in a place this big, this quiet. Adesola froze, her breath lodged painfully in her chest, heart slamming so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She didn't need to look up to know he was standing there. The air changed when Han Jisung entered a room. It always did. It thickened, heavy with authority, with danger, with a quiet threat of violence that never needed to announce itself. She had felt it the instant the private elevator doors slid open behind her. She had felt it before the sound of his footsteps even reached her ears. Her fingers instinctively rose to her face, touching the edge of the beige bandage taped carefully along her cheekbone. Too late. Don't move. His voice cut through the space like a blade, low, calm, unmistakably commanding. Not loud. Never loud. He didn't need to be. Adesola swallowed and slowly lowered her hand, every muscle in her body screaming at her to run, to disappear, to become invisible like she had perfected over the years. She stared at the broken cup on the floor instead of turning around, her eyes stinging. I'm sorry, sir, she said softly. I'll clean it up right away. She bent down too quickly, panic driving her movements, and that was when it happened. The sleeve of her uniform slid back. The bruises on her wrist bloomed into view, purple, yellow, and angry, shaped unmistakably like fingers. There was a sound behind her. Not footsteps. Not a voice. A sharp intake of breath. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Stand up, Han Jisung said. Her body disobeyed her mind before she could stop it. She rose slowly, her back stiff, shoulders drawn inward as if she could somehow fold herself small enough to vanish. She turned around at last, keeping her gaze lowered in practiced submission. She had cleaned this penthouse for 6 months. 6 months of wiping fingerprints off glass walls, folding shirts that cost more than her monthly rent, polishing surfaces that reflected a life she would never touch. She had never once seen him look at her like this. His dark eyes were locked on her face. On the bandage. On her wrist. The silence stretched. "Who did that to you?" he asked. Her heart lurched violently. "No one," she said too quickly. "I fell. I'm clumsy sometimes." He took a step closer. Adesola's lungs burned. Every instinct screamed danger. This was not how this was supposed to go. Powerful men did not notice maids. They did not ask questions. They did not care. Han Jisung stopped less than an arm's length away from her. "Look at me," he said. She didn't. His hand lifted anyway. She flinched before she could stop herself. The movement was small, instinctive, humiliating. Something dark flashed across his face. "Look at me," he repeated, quieter now. "More dangerous." She forced herself to raise her eyes. For the first time since she started working here, she saw something crack in the infamous composure of Los Altos Hills' most feared crime lord. Shock. Then anger. Then something far more unsettling. Concern. Before the story continues, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button. Now let's continue. Han Jisung had built his empire on silence. Silence was how deals were made, how enemies disappeared, how fear spread without effort. His penthouse reflected that philosophy. Clean lines, muted colors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the rolling hills of Los Altos Hills like a king surveying his territory. Nothing unnecessary. Nothing sentimental. Except her. He hadn't noticed when she first started. Or rather, he had noticed her in the way men like him noticed staff, functionally, vaguely, without curiosity. She cleaned. She came and went. She existed in the background like furniture. That was how it was supposed to be. Yet now, standing in front of him with a bandage on her face and terror written into the way she held her body, Adesola Nyarko was suddenly all he could see. "Take the bandage off," he said. Her eyes widened. "Sir, I really should get back to work." That wasn't a request. Her fingers shook as she slowly peeled the tape away. The adhesive tugged painfully at her skin, exposing the dark bruise underneath, deep purple, tinged with green, blooming cruelly against her brown skin. Jisung stared at it. He'd seen broken bones, blood-soaked shirts, bodies laid out on concrete floors. Violence was the language he spoke fluently. This bruise made his jaw tighten in a way none of that ever had. "How long?" he asked. "A few days," she whispered. "And the wrist?" She instinctively tried to pull her sleeve down. He caught her wrist gently, but firmly. She gasped. "I'm not hurting you," he said immediately, his grip loosening but not releasing. "I need you to answer me." Tears burned behind her eyes. She hated this. Hated being seen like this. Hated that her carefully constructed invisibility was unraveling in front of the most dangerous man she had ever met. "It's nothing," she said. "Please, sir. I just want to finish cleaning and go home to my daughter." That word made him pause. "Your daughter?" he repeated. "Yes." "How old?" 7. 7. His grip finally loosened completely. "What's her name?" Adesola hesitated. "Amari." He nodded slowly, committing it to memory without knowing why. "You don't have to be afraid here," he said. The words sounded foreign even to his own ears. She let out a broken laugh. "Everyone says that." His eyes sharpened. "I'm not everyone." "No," she agreed quietly. "You're not." Something in her tone made his chest tighten. "Sit down," he said. She shook her head immediately. "I can't. I'm working." "I'm telling you to sit." Her legs gave in before her pride could argue. She lowered herself onto one of the kitchen stools, hands folded tightly in her lap like a child awaiting punishment. He leaned against the counter across from her, arms crossed. "Tell me who did this," he said. She stared at the floor. "I can't." "Why?" "Because it will make things worse." "For who?" "For me. For my daughter." His jaw clenched. "You think it can get worse than this?" "Yes," she said immediately. "I know it can." Silence again. He studied her properly now. The faint dark circles under her eyes. The way she moved carefully, as if pain was something she lived with constantly. The soft hum she sometimes made while cleaning. He remembered it now, how it lingered faintly in rooms long after she left. "You arranged the books by color," he said suddenly. She blinked, startled. "What?" "In the living room," he continued. "You change the order every week. Red to violet. Then back again." I just thought it looked nicer." "And the flowers," he added. "Fresh ones. Even when I'm not here." She swallowed. "It makes the place feel less empty." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Something shifted in his expression. "You're the only real thing in this apartment," he said quietly. Her breath caught. She had spent 29 years being overlooked, walked past, spoken over, used, hurt, forgotten. No one had ever said something like that to her. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered. "Not to someone like me." "Someone like you," he echoed. "A maid. A nobody." His eyes darkened. "You are not a nobody." She shook her head, tears finally spilling over. "You don't understand. I survive by being invisible. Please don't take that away from me." Jisung straightened slowly. "Invisibility doesn't protect you," he said. "It makes you a target." A knock sounded from the hallway. One of his subordinates appeared hesitantly. "Boss, we have an issue with—" "Get out," Jisung snapped without looking away from Adesola. The man vanished immediately. Jisung turned back to her, voice lower, resolute. "You leave this penthouse without my protection," he said, "and whatever did this to you will happen again. Worse." Her heart pounded violently. "You don't get to decide that." "I do," he replied. "If you work here, you are under my protection. That includes your daughter." Fear and hope tangled painfully in her chest. "You don't even know me," she whispered. "I know enough," he said. "And I want to know the rest." She stared at him, caught between terror and something dangerously close to relief. For the first time in her life, someone powerful was not looking past her. They were looking directly at her. And nothing would ever be the same again. Adesola didn't sleep that night. She lay awake on the narrow bed in her small apartment in Ivory Heights, staring at the faint crack in the ceiling that resembled a crooked river, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the softer, more dangerous noise of her own thoughts. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, Han Jisung's dark, unreadable eyes as they studied her bruises, the way his voice had lowered when he said her name, the way the world had seemed to tilt slightly off its axis when he told her she wasn't invisible. She turned onto her side, careful not to wake Amari, who slept curled against her back, one small arm thrown possessively around her waist. Her daughter's breathing was slow and even, blissfully unaware of how close her mother constantly felt to the edge of something terrible. Or something miraculous. Adesola pressed a hand to her chest, trying to slow her heart. This was dangerous. Men like Han Jisung did not intervene without cost. Power always came with strings, even when it was wrapped in concern and gentle words. Especially then. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She froze. Only one person ever called this late. Her breath came out shaky as she reached for the phone, her fingers stiff with fear. She didn't even look at the screen before answering. Hello. There was silence on the other end. Then breathing. Heavy. Familiar. Darius, she whispered. I saw him, Darius Mensa said. His voice was thick with something ugly, resentment, fury, wounded pride. Your little protector. Her stomach dropped. What are you talking about? She said, even as dread curled deep in her gut. You think I don't know, he continued. You think I don't see things? You think I don't hear what people say? She sat up slowly, easing Amari's arm away from her waist and rising from the bed. She padded barefoot into the tiny kitchen, every sound magnified in the silence. Stay away from me, she said quietly. You're not allowed to contact me. He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You really think that piece of paper can stop me? Her hand tightened around the phone. You hurt me. You hurt us. You don't get to do this anymore. You always did think you were better than me, he snapped. Running around cleaning rich people's houses, acting like you're something special. She closed her eyes. Good night, Darius, she said, and hung up before he could say more. Her hands shook violently. She locked the door, checked the windows twice, then stood there in the dark, heart pounding, wondering how he knew about Han Jisung. Wondering what Jisung had done. The next afternoon, the penthouse felt different. It always did when Jisung was present. Adesola moved carefully through the living room, vacuuming the plush rug beneath the towering windows, aware of him even when she couldn't see him. He was in his office, door open, voice low as he spoke in Korean to someone on the phone. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Controlled. Lethal. She focused on her work, on the rhythmic back and forth of the vacuum, on not thinking about the way her skin still felt warm where he'd touched her wrist the day before. Adesola. Her name. She stopped immediately and turned, switching off the vacuum. He stood in the doorway of his office now, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. He looked less untouchable like this. More human. That somehow made him more dangerous. Yes, sir. He frowned slightly. I told you yesterday, you don't have to call me that. She hesitated. I don't know what else to call you. My name. Her heart stuttered. Jisung. Something softened briefly in his expression. Come here, he said. She obeyed, every step cautious, until she stood a few feet away from him. Did anyone contact you last night? He asked. Her eyes flicked away. No. He studied her face, reading the lie effortlessly. Adesola, he said quietly, lying to me doesn't protect you. Her shoulders sagged. Darius called, she admitted. He said he'd seen you. Jisung's jaw tightened. I warned him not to come near you again. Her breath caught. You spoke to him? Yes. What did you do? She asked, fear threading through her voice. I talked, he said evenly. That's not an answer. It's the only one you need. She shook her head. This is exactly what I was afraid of. I don't want trouble. I don't want him angry. I just want to live quietly. There is no quiet with men like him, Jisung said. Only pauses between violence. She flinched at the truth in his words. You don't understand, she said. If he thinks I have someone powerful backing me, he'll just try harder to prove he still owns me." The word hung between them, raw and ugly. Jisung's eyes darkened dangerously. "He doesn't own you. He thinks he does." "I'll make sure he doesn't," Jisung said. She looked up at him, fear and frustration warring in her gaze. "You can't just decide that. This is my life." "And you're risking it," he shot back. "For what?" "Pride." "For survival," she said sharply. "I survived him by staying small. By not provoking him. By letting him hurt you." Jisung demanded. Silence. She looked away, tears blurring her vision. "You don't know what it's like to feel trapped all the time." He stepped closer. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't." She let out a shaky breath. "Then please don't turn my life into something even scarier." He studied her for a long moment. "Have dinner with me," he said suddenly. She blinked. "What?" "Tonight," he continued. "You and your daughter." Her first instinct was panic. "I can't." "At Myeonghwa House," he added. "In Koreatown Hills." She stared at him. "Why?" "Because I want to talk to you somewhere that doesn't smell like bleach and fear," he said. "Because I want your daughter to see that you're safe. And because," he paused, "I don't want to be your boss tonight." Her heart pounded violently. "That's inappropriate," she said weakly. "Everything about this already is," he replied. "This is me trying to do something right." She shook her head. "People will stare. They stare anyway. I don't belong in your world." He met her gaze steadily. "You belong wherever you choose to stand." Her throat tightened. "I'll have a car pick you up at 7, he said. "I didn't say yes." "You didn't say no either." He turned back toward his office, then stopped. "Wear something comfortable," he added. "Amari too." The drive to Myeonghwa House felt unreal. Adesola sat stiffly in the back seat of the sleek black car, Amari chattering softly beside her about school and the pretty lights outside. She'd dressed Amari in her favorite yellow dress and braided her hair carefully, hands trembling the entire time. She herself wore a simple navy dress she'd bought years ago for church, paired with flats that pinched slightly at the toes. They were escorted inside without waiting. The restaurant was warm and elegant, the air rich with the scent of grilled meat and spices. Soft Korean music played in the background. Other diners glanced up, curious, whispering. Jisung stood when he saw them. He wasn't wearing a suit tonight. Just dark slacks and a fitted sweater. He looked approachable. Amari stopped short, eyes wide. "Mama," she whispered, "is he a prince?" Adesola nearly laughed and cried at the same time. Jisung crouched to Amari's level, a rare, genuine smile breaking across his face. "I'm afraid not," he said gently. "But I'm very happy to meet you. I'm Jisung." Amari studied him seriously. "You're very tall." He chuckled. "I get that a lot." She smiled, instantly charmed. Something inside Adesola loosened painfully. Dinner unfolded slowly, carefully. Jisung explained dishes to Amari, showed her how to use chopsticks, laughed when she dropped a piece of bulgogi onto the table. He listened when Adesola spoke, really listened, asking about her childhood, her dreams, her exhaustion. "You're strong," he told her quietly at one point. "Stronger than anyone I know." She shook her head. "I'm just tired." He reached across the table, stopping short of touching her hand. "You don't have to be tired alone anymore." Her breath caught. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a possibility. The warmth from dinner followed them into the night, clinging to Adesola like a fragile dream she was afraid to breathe too hard around. Amari had fallen asleep in the back seat of the car almost immediately, her small head tipped against the door, mouth slightly open, clutching the paper crane Jisung had folded for her at the table. Adesola watched her daughter through the faint reflection in the glass, her heart aching with a mix of gratitude and fear. She couldn't remember the last time Amari had laughed so freely in front of someone new, or the last time Adesola herself had felt, held, without being touched. Jisung drove in silence, one hand resting casually on the steering wheel, the other draped over the console. The city lights washed over his face in shifting patterns, softening the sharp lines that usually made him look untouchable. He glanced at her once, just briefly, then returned his eyes to the road. "She trusts you," Adesola said quietly. He nodded. "Children know when something is real." Her throat tightened. "That scares me." He exhaled slowly. "It should. It means this matters." The car slowed as they turned into Ivory Heights. The buildings were older here, paint chipped, streetlights flickering unevenly. Jisung's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he took it in. "You live here," he said. "Yes." "You didn't tell me it was this far." She shrugged. "Rent's cheaper. And safety." She gave a soft, humorless laugh. "That costs extra." The car stopped in front of her building. Jisung got out first, opening the back door gently so as not to wake Amari. Without asking, he lifted her into his arms, surprising Adesola with how careful he was, how naturally Amari settled against his chest. "I can carry her," Adesola whispered. "I know," he replied. "Let me." She unlocked the door and led him up the narrow stairs, every step echoing loudly in her chest. Inside, the apartment was small but clean, the walls decorated with Amari's drawings and second-hand frames holding photos from better days. Jisung looked around slowly, taking everything in. "This is where you've been," he murmured. She nodded. "It's not much. It's yours." He laid Amari gently on the bed, tucking a blanket around her. For a moment, he stood there watching her sleep, his expression unreadable. "She deserves more," he said quietly. "So do you," Adesola replied before she could stop herself. Their eyes met. The air between them thickened. "I should go," he said after a moment. "But I don't want to." Her heart stuttered. "Then, don't." He hesitated, then stepped back, creating distance with visible effort. "I won't cross lines you don't want crossed." "I don't know what I want," she admitted. "Everything feels fast." "Then we go slow," he said. "At your pace." She studied him, searching for deception, for expectation, for the hidden price of his kindness. She found none. "Why me?" she asked softly. He didn't answer right away. "Because you don't know your worth," he said finally. "And because when you walk into a room, it changes." She shook her head. "I just clean." "You make order out of chaos," he corrected. "You make things livable." A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "For my daughter." He nodded once. "Any time." As he turned to leave, her phone buzzed again. Her blood ran cold. She glanced at the screen. Detective Kim. Her hands shook as she answered. "Hello." "Ms. Nyarko," the detective said, voice professional but edged with concern. "We've received a complaint against you." Her knees nearly buckled. "What?" "Your ex-partner, Darius Mensa, claims you falsely accused him of domestic abuse and that you've been harassing him through a third party." Her breath came in short, panicked gasps. "That's not true." "I'm aware," Detective Kim said. "But he's pushing for charges. I needed to inform you." She sank onto the couch, her free hand gripping the cushion tightly. "What do I do?" There was a pause. "We'll need to talk tomorrow." The call ended. She stared at the phone, her vision blurring. Jisung was still there. He'd heard enough. "You called him," she whispered, turning to him. "You promised you wouldn't make things worse." "I told him to stay away," he said quietly. "I didn't threaten him." "But he's retaliating." "Yes," Jisung admitted. "Because he's desperate." Her chest tightened painfully. "This is what I was afraid of." She stood abruptly. "I can't do this. I can't be dragged into your world." "My world found you long before I did," he said. "That's not fair." "No," he agreed. "It isn't." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I just want to be normal. Invisible." Jisung stepped closer. "You're drowning," he said softly. "And you're angry at the hand reaching out because it's not gentle enough." She laughed bitterly. "You don't do gentle." His gaze softened. "For you, I can learn." The words hit her harder than any blow ever had. "I don't want you hurting people for me," she said. I don't want blood on my life. There already is, he replied. Just not by your hand. Tears streamed freely now. I'm scared. So am I, he admitted. You're the first thing in 15 years that's made me afraid. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the loneliness beneath the power, the exhaustion behind the control. I love you, she said suddenly, the truth bursting out before she could stop it. The silence that followed was deafening. Jisung stared at her as if the world had shifted beneath his feet. You shouldn't say things like that, he said hoarsely. I know, she whispered. But it's already true. He reached out, stopping just short of touching her face. If you say that, he said, voice shaking slightly, there's no pretending this is simple. I don't want simple, she replied. I want honest. He closed the distance then, pressing his forehead gently to hers. I will handle this, he promised. The legal threat. Darius. Everything. And if I ask you not to, she asked. I'll listen, he said. But I won't watch you suffer. She pulled back slightly. I need time. The words seemed to wound him more deeply than anger would have. How much? He asked. I don't know, she said. Days. Maybe more. He nodded slowly. I'll give you space. She hesitated. You don't have to. I do, he said. If this is real. 4 days passed. 4 days of silence. Amari noticed. Mama, she asked one evening, did the tall man go away? Adesola forced a smile. He's just busy. Amari frowned. He looked lonely. So did Adesola. On the 5th night, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Jisung standing there, hair slightly disheveled, eyes dark and rimmed with exhaustion. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who'd lost control of something vital. I tried, he said immediately. I tried to stay away. Her heart ached. Jisung. I can't, he interrupted. I can't go back to the way things were. You made me visible to myself. Tears filled her eyes. This is dangerous. I know, he said. But loving you is the first thing that's ever felt worth the risk. She stepped aside. Come in. And in that moment, Adesola Nyarko chose to stop being invisible. She chose to be seen. Jisung stepped inside slowly, as if crossing the threshold required permission not just from her, but from whatever fragile peace she had built in the past few days. The door clicked shut behind him, the sound loud in the small apartment. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy, saturated with everything they'd avoided saying. You look tired, Adesola said finally. He let out a quiet, humorless laugh. I don't sleep anymore. That's not healthy. Neither is pretending you don't exist, he replied. She folded her arms around herself. I asked for time. And I gave it, he said gently. 4 days. For days where I walked into rooms that felt hollow because you weren't there humming while you cleaned. For days where every decision I made felt pointless. Her throat tightened. You're exaggerating. I don't exaggerate, he said. I calculate. And every calculation leads back to you. She turned away, pressing her palms to the counter, breathing through the surge of emotion. You don't know what loving someone like me costs. I know exactly what it costs, he said. I just don't care. She spun back to face him. You should. He met her gaze steadily. Why? Because I'm dangerous. Because my hands are dirty. Because people like you don't get happy endings, she said, voice breaking. And people like me pay the price when we believe they do. He stepped closer, stopping when he was just inches away. I'm not asking you to believe in me, he said softly. I'm asking you to believe in yourself. She shook her head. You make it sound easy. It's not, he replied. That's why it matters. From the bedroom, Amari stirred, mumbling softly in her sleep. Both of them stilled instinctively. She's everything, Adesola whispered. I know, Jisung said. And I will never be the reason she's hurt. How can you promise that? She demanded. Your world is violent. Your enemies don't play fair. Neither do I, he said calmly. But I draw lines. And she is behind every one of them. Adesola searched his face for arrogance, for recklessness. She found resolve instead. Terrifying, unyielding resolve. Detective Kim called again today, she said quietly. His jaw tightened. What did he say? He wants a formal statement tomorrow, she said. About Darius. About the abuse. That's good, Jisung said. It puts everything on record. It also puts a target on my back. Not if I'm standing in front of it. She laughed bitterly. You really think you can block everything forever? No, he said. But I can make sure anyone who tries regrets it. She closed her eyes. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing the edge of the fading bruise. No one will ever touch you like that again, he said quietly. I swear it. Her breath hitched. Swearing doesn't make it true. My actions will, he replied. She leaned into his touch before she could stop herself, exhaustion finally breaking down her defenses. I don't want to be saved, she whispered. I want to be safe. He rested his forehead against hers. Then let me build something safer. They stood like that for a long moment, suspended between fear and hope. The next morning, everything moved quickly. Detective Kim's office was sterile and unforgiving, the walls too white, the chairs too hard. Adesola sat rigidly, hands clasped in her lap, while Jisung stood behind her, silent and watchful. The detective glanced between them with thinly veiled curiosity. Ms. Nyarko, Detective Kim said, I need you to understand that making this statement may escalate things. I know, Adesola replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. But I'm tired of being scared. Jisung's eyes flicked to her, something like pride flashing briefly across his face. The statement took over an hour. Dates. Incidents. Details she'd buried deep. By the end, her voice was hoarse, her body trembling with the effort of reliving it all. When it was over, Detective Kim leaned back in his chair. We'll move forward with this, he said. And Ms. Nyarko, if he contacts you again, you call me immediately. She nodded. Outside, the sun felt too bright, the world too loud. You did well, Jisung said quietly. I feel sick, she admitted. He placed a hand at the small of her back, grounding. That passes. And then you get stronger, he said. Every time. They didn't see Darius at first. It was 3 nights later, when Adesola was walking home from the corner store, groceries tucked under her arm, that she felt it, that familiar prickle at the base of her spine. She turned. He stood across the street, leaning against a parked car, eyes fixed on her. Smiling. Her blood ran cold. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice shaking. Relax, Darius said, crossing the street slowly. I just wanted to talk. Stay back, she warned. He laughed. Or what? You'll call your gangster boyfriend. Before she could respond, a black car pulled up behind him. Jisung stepped out. The air shifted instantly. Darius froze. Get away from her, Jisung said calmly. Darius scoffed, but fear flickered in his eyes. You think you own her now? No, Jisung replied. I think you're standing too close to something you don't understand. Adesola's heart pounded. Jisung, don't. He glanced back at her, his gaze softening briefly. Go inside. I'm not leaving you, she said. Darius laughed nervously. See? She doesn't even trust you. Jisung turned back to him, expression hardening. You filed a false complaint, he said. You violated a restraining order. And now you're threatening a witness. Darius's bravado crumbled. You don't scare me. Jisung stepped closer. You should be terrified. 2 men stepped out of the car behind him, silent, imposing. This is harassment, Darius snapped. I'll call the cops. Please do, Jisung said. They're already on their way. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Darius's face went pale. He backed away slowly. This isn't over. It is, Jisung said. For you. Darius turned and ran. Adesola sagged against the building, shaking. Jisung was at her side instantly. "Are you okay?" he asked urgently. She nodded weakly. "You promised no blood." He cupped her face. "And there won't be. Not today. Not ever, if I can help it." She stared at him, tears streaming freely. "I can't keep living like this." "You won't," he said. "Come with me." She hesitated. "Where?" "Somewhere safer," he replied. "Somewhere no one can reach you." "You mean the penthouse," she said. "Yes." Her chest tightened. "That's your world." "It can be ours," he said. She thought of Amari, of the nights spent listening for footsteps, of the constant fear. "Okay," she whispered. The penthouse felt different when she arrived that night, not like a workplace, but like a promise. Jisung showed Amari her room first, letting her choose the sheets, letting her run freely through spaces Adesola had once cleaned in silence. Later, as Amari slept, Adesola stood by the window, looking out over the city lights. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Jisung said, standing beside her. "But I've never been more certain of anything." She turned to face him. "If we do this, we do it together. No secrets." He nodded. "I don't want a life you're not part of." She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. For the first time, the view didn't make her feel small. It made her feel seen. Morning came softly in the penthouse, filtered through sheer curtains that turned the sunlight into something gentle instead of blinding. Adesola woke slowly, disoriented for a moment by the unfamiliar quiet. No shouting in the hallway. No sirens outside the window. No instinctive jolt of fear clawing her awake. She lay still, listening. Amari's laughter floated faintly from somewhere down the hall. Adesola's heart skipped. She sat up abruptly, panic flaring, then she remembered. The penthouse. The night before. Jisung. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed and followed the sound. Amari was in the kitchen, perched on a stool far too tall for her, swinging her legs happily while Jisung stood beside her, guiding her hands as she cracked an egg into a bowl. He wore a plain white t-shirt, sleeves pushed up, hair still slightly damp as if he'd just showered. He looked domestic. The sight hit Adesola harder than any threat ever had. "Mama!" Amari squealed when she saw her. "He's teaching me how to cook." Jisung glanced up, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "She's very serious about it," he said. "I think she might be a better chef than me already." Adesola blinked rapidly, emotion rising too fast, too sharp. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I want to," he replied simply. Amari beamed. "He said I can help every morning." Every morning. The word settled into Adesola's chest, heavy and warm and terrifying. Breakfast passed in a strange, fragile peace. Jisung moved around the kitchen with quiet efficiency, handing Amari napkins, wiping flour from her cheek, listening intently as she explained her favorite cartoon in painstaking detail. Adesola watched it all, torn between relief and fear, waiting for the moment reality would intrude. It didn't. After breakfast, Jisung crouched in front of Amari. "I have work today," he said gently. "But people will be here. You'll be safe." Amari nodded solemnly. "Mama says safe is important." He glanced at Adesola. "Your mother is very wise." When Amari ran off to explore her new room again, Jisung turned to Adesola, his expression more serious. "We need to talk," he said. Her stomach tightened. "About what?" "About you staying here," he said. "And what that means." She folded her arms, bracing herself. "I'm not your kept woman." "I would never," he said immediately. "I want you to have independence, security, choices." She studied him. "Then what are you offering?" "A partnership," he said. "In life. Not business, yet." Her brow furrowed. "Yet." "I know you've talked about starting your own cleaning company," he said. "Fair wages. Ethical work." Her breath caught. "You remembered that?" "I remember everything you say," he replied. "I want to help you do it." "I don't want charity." "I know," he said. "That's why I'll be an investor, not a savior. You'll run it. I won't interfere." She looked away, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? He hesitated. Because when I look at you, I see the life I could have had if I'd chosen differently. And because helping you build something clean feels like redemption. The word lingered between them. I can't be your absolution, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to be, he replied. Just my future. She met his gaze. This doesn't erase what you do. I know. And it won't be easy. I don't want easy. She exhaled slowly. Okay. The word felt like stepping off a cliff. The days that followed blurred into something almost normal. Amari started school nearby, escorted by drivers who treated her like precious cargo. Adesola began sketching out plans for her business, sitting at the massive dining table with notebooks and coffee, her thoughts finally allowed to stretch beyond survival. Jisung watched from a distance, careful not to crowd her. He came home later than usual, sometimes with blood on his knuckles, sometimes with shadows under his eyes that told stories she didn't ask about yet. One evening, she couldn't help it. You're still doing it, she said quietly as he washed his hands in the kitchen sink. The violence. He didn't look up. I can't dismantle 15 years overnight. I know, she said. But I need to know where the line is. He turned to face her. The line is you and Amari. Anyone who threatens you is dealt with legally. Anyone else is business. She swallowed. And if business puts us in danger, I'll walk away, he said without hesitation. She stared at him. Just like that. Yes. You built an empire. I can build another one, he replied. This time without blood. Her eyes filled with tears. You don't say things lightly. No, he said. I don't. That night, when he kissed her for the first time, it was slow and reverent, as if he were afraid she might disappear if he moved too fast. She responded cautiously at first, then with a hunger born of years of denial and fear. When they finally broke apart, foreheads resting together, she whispered, "If this hurts my daughter, I'll disappear," he finished. "I swear." The call came a week later. Detective Kim. Adesola answered with a steady voice. "Yes. We've arrested Darius Mensah," the detective said. "Violation of restraining order. Witness intimidation. He won't be out for a while." Her knees nearly buckled. "Thank you." After she hung up, she sank onto the couch, sobbing. Jisung was beside her instantly, pulling her into his arms without a word. She clung to him, grief and relief crashing together violently. "It's over," she whispered. He pressed a kiss to her hair. "It's the beginning." Months passed. Adesola's business launched quietly at first. 2 clients, then 5, then 12. She hired women like herself, paid them fairly, trained them gently. She came home exhausted but proud, her laughter returning in small, precious bursts. Jisung changed too. Meetings shifted. Faces disappeared. Suits replaced street deals. He brought her paperwork, asked her opinions, listened. One night, standing on the balcony overlooking the city, he took her hand. "I want to marry you," he said. She laughed softly. "That was abrupt." "I don't do gradual," he replied. "But I'll wait if you want." She looked out at the lights. "Ask Amari." He did. Amari grinned. "Can I wear a pretty dress?" Jisung smiled. "The prettiest." Years later, the penthouse echoed with laughter instead of silence. Adesola's company thrived. Amari got her acceptance letter to UCLA and cried into her mother's arms. Jisung signed papers that severed the last ties to his old life. One evening, Adesola stood in the kitchen, rearranging books by color on a nearby shelf, humming softly. Jisung watched her, heart full. "You know," he said, "you were the first thing I ever truly saw." She smiled at him. "And you were the first person who refused to look away." In that moment, invisibility finally released its grip. And love took its place. The first time Adesola realized she no longer flinched at loud noises, it caught her off guard. It happened on a random Tuesday afternoon, years after the night she had stood trembling in this same penthouse, afraid to touch anything that didn't belong to her. A delivery cart slammed accidentally against the marble wall near the elevators, the sound sharp and sudden. Everyone else startled. Adesola didn't. She paused mid-step, surprised not by the noise, but by the absence of fear. No rush of adrenaline. No instinct to shrink. No racing thoughts calculating escape routes. She stood there, coffee in hand, and laughed softly at herself. Healing, she realized, was quiet. It didn't announce itself. It slipped in when you weren't looking. Mom. She turned to see Amari jogging toward her, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds dangling from her fingers. She was taller now, nearly Adesola's height, with confidence in her stride that still sometimes made Adesola's chest ache with pride. Yes, baby. I'm running late, Amari said. Study group went longer than I thought. Adesola glanced at the watch on her wrist, the one Jisung had bought her on their first anniversary after she'd launched her 5th cleaning contract. Text me when you get home, she said automatically. Amari smiled, teasing. You always say that. And you always forget, Adesola replied, smiling back. Amari leaned in and kissed her cheek. Love you. I love you more. Amari rolled her eyes affectionately and headed toward the elevators, already typing on her phone. Adesola watched her go, her heart full in that quiet, steady way that used to feel impossible. Later that evening, the penthouse was alive with sound. Not the echoing silence it once carried, but warmth, music playing softly from the speakers, the rhythmic chop of vegetables on the kitchen island, laughter drifting in from the balcony where Jisung was on a call with one of his overseas partners. Adesola moved confidently through the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hair wrapped in a colorful scarf that blended beautifully with the minimalist space. The kitchen no longer felt like a place she cleaned. It felt like hers. When Jisung ended his call, he didn't announce himself. He simply came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin against her shoulder. You're home early, she said, smiling. I cancelled the last meeting, he replied. I'd rather be here. She leaned back into him. You say that like it's still surprising. It is, he said quietly. Every day. She turned in his arms, studying the man he had become. The sharp edges were still there, authority didn't fade easily, but they were tempered now by something gentler. Intentional. How was work? She asked. He exhaled. Productive. Frustrating. Necessary. That sounds like you're being diplomatic. I'm learning, he said with a faint smile. She laughed. Who are you and what have you done with a man who once dismissed an entire boardroom without blinking? He brushed his thumb along her jaw. That man didn't know what he was missing. Her expression softened. Sometimes I still think about it, she admitted. The first day. The bandage. How close I was to running. And yet, he said, you stayed. I was scared, she said. But you said my name. He nodded slowly. Saying your name felt important. Like a promise. A knock echoed from the front door. That'll be my mother, Adesola said, already grinning. Jisung groaned softly. I swear she has better timing than my security team. She laughed as she went to open the door. Her mother swept in like a force of nature, dressed in a vibrant Ankara dress, eyes immediately scanning the apartment with approval. Ah, she said. You've rearranged the books again. Adesola smiled. You noticed. Of course I noticed, her mother said. Order tells a story. Jisung bowed slightly, respectful as always. Good evening, ma'am. She eyed him critically, then smiled. You look tired. Are you eating properly? He nodded quickly. Yes. Adesola snorted. That's a lie. Dinner was loud and joyful, a mix of Korean dishes and Nigerian flavors, Amari joining them later with stories about her professors and plans for the future. Languages blended effortlessly, English, Korean, Yoruba phrases slipping in naturally. It was chaotic and beautiful and entirely theirs. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Adesola stood on the balcony alone, city lights stretching endlessly below. Jisung joined her quietly, handing her a cup of tea. You're thinking again, he said. She smiled faintly. I always think. What about this time? She took a sip. About how strange life is. He leaned against the railing beside her. Strange how? I used to believe happiness was loud, she said. That it would arrive dramatically and announce itself. But this, She gestured toward the apartment behind them. This is quiet. Steady. Safe. He nodded. I used to think power was control, he said. Now I know it's restraint. She looked at him, eyes shining. You changed. So did you. I had to, she said. For Amari. For myself. And for me, he added softly. She smiled. Yes. For you too. A pause settled between them, comfortable and familiar. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Leaving that life completely? He thought for a long moment. Sometimes, he admitted. Not the violence, not the fear, but the certainty, the simplicity of knowing exactly where I stood. And now, he said, turning to her, I stand with you. And that's more complicated. But it's real. She reached for his hand. Real is enough. He squeezed her fingers gently. Inside, the penthouse lights glowed warmly against the night. The place that had once been a symbol of isolation had become a home filled with voices, culture, and love. Adesola rested her head against Jisung's shoulder, the city humming below them, and allowed herself a quiet, grateful breath. She was no longer invisible. She was living. And she was ready for whatever came next. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was slipped beneath the penthouse door sometime between sunrise and the moment Adesola returned from dropping off Amari at campus. At first, she almost missed it, just a thick white envelope resting innocently against the dark wood, no return address, no stamp. Her chest tightened before she even picked it up. Some instincts never disappeared. They just slept lightly. She stood there for a long moment, keys still in her hand, staring down at it as if it might move on its own. The penthouse was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that once meant danger. She bent slowly and picked it up. Heavy. Too heavy for a letter. She carried it inside and placed it on the kitchen counter, suddenly aware of how loud her breathing sounded in the open space. Her eyes flicked instinctively toward the security cameras, the reinforced glass, the doors that had once made her feel trapped and now made her feel protected. Still, her fingers trembled as she slid a nail under the flap. Inside were photographs. Her heart dropped violently. The first one showed Amari walking across campus, backpack slung over her shoulder, laughing with a friend. The next showed Adesola herself exiting her office building downtown, phone pressed to her ear. Another showed Jisung entering a meeting, captured from across the street. The last photo made her knees buckle. It was the penthouse balcony, taken from somewhere close enough to see through the glass. Close enough to watch. Adesola pressed a hand to her mouth, nausea surging. The room felt suddenly smaller, the walls closing in. Jisung's voice came from behind her. What's wrong? She spun around sharply, clutching the photos to her chest. Jisung. He stopped immediately, reading the terror on her face. What happened? She held out the envelope with shaking hands. He took it, his expression darkening as he flipped through the contents. The change in him was instant. The softness she loved didn't disappear, but something colder, sharper slid beneath it. The man who had once ruled an underground empire lifted his head slowly, eyes scanning the room as if calculating threats invisible to her. How long ago did you find this? He asked. Just now, she whispered. They've been watching us. Yes, he said quietly. They have. Her breath hitched. You knew. I suspected, he admitted. I was hoping I was wrong. She felt something crack inside her. Who? He didn't answer right away. Jisung, she pressed. Who is this? He set the photos down carefully, as if any sudden movement might break something precious. There are parts of my past that don't dissolve just because I step away, he said. Loose ends. People who believe leaving is betrayal. Fear crept coldly up her spine. You promised. And I meant it, he said firmly. But promises don't stop vultures from circling. She wrapped her arms around herself. Is Amari safe? Yes, he said immediately. She's protected. More than anyone else in this city. You're sure? I would never gamble with her life, he said, voice steel-edged. Or yours. Her voice trembled despite her effort to stay calm. Then why do I feel like we're standing at the edge of something bad? Because she was. Jisung stepped closer, lowering his voice. Because someone wants my attention. And how do you usually respond when someone does that? She asked quietly. He held her gaze. It depends. Her heart pounded painfully. Depends on what? On whether they cross a line, he said. She shook her head. I don't want to go back to that world. I won't. I know, he said. And I won't drag you into it. But it's already here, she whispered, gesturing at the photos. It followed you home. Yes, he said softly. It did. She swallowed hard. What happens now? Jisung looked at the balcony again, then at the city beyond, his jaw tightening with resolve. Now, he said, we find out who sent this. And then I make sure they understand, he replied evenly, that my family is not leverage. The word family landed heavily between them. She loved him. That truth had never wavered. But love didn't erase fear, and safety wasn't something she was willing to gamble anymore, not after everything she'd survived. I need to know something, she said. He turned back to her immediately. Anything. If protecting us means becoming the man you used to be, she said slowly, can you stop yourself? The question hung in the air, raw and dangerous. For the first time in a long time, Jisung didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was honest, and that scared her more than any lie. I don't know, he said. But I know this, I won't let history repeat itself without a fight. She closed her eyes, pain and love twisting together in her chest. Then promise me something else, she said. What? That you'll tell me before you cross that line, she whispered. Not after. Not when it's too late. He stepped closer, cupping her face gently. I promise. She searched his eyes, seeing both the man who had seen her when she was invisible and the shadow of the one who could destroy anyone who threatened what he loved. Somewhere between those two men was the future of their family, and she didn't yet know which one would win. Outside, the city buzzed on, unaware that something dangerous had begun to stir again in the quiet heights above it. Adesola leaned into Jisung's chest, listening to his heartbeat, steady, controlled, powerful, and wondered how long that balance could last. Love had saved them once. But love, she knew now, could also be the reason everything burned. And whoever had sent that letter was counting on it. Thank you so much for watching this story until the very end. If you felt something, anything at all, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me your favorite part. I read every single comment and they mean the world to me. Also, let me know what city you are watching from. I love knowing where all my amazing viewers are located. Until next time, stay blessed, stay safe.